Meanwhile, a new report from the Anti-Defamation League, out just this morning, finds white supremacist propaganda over the last year has nearly doubled since 2019. Joining us now, the CEO and National Director of the Anti-Defamation League, Jonathan Greenblatt. Also with us, Adjunct Professor of Religion and Philosophy at Christopher Newport University, Sophia Nelson. She is a USA Today columnist and contributing editor to thegrio.com. Sam Stein and Casey Hunt are still with us as well. So I guess what I'd like to ask, you, sir, Jonathan, is whether or not you see a direct link between the events of the past 4 years and the leadership we had and the rise in hate that we are witnessing here today in America.
Well, Mika, thank you for having me. The ADL is the oldest anti-hate organization in the world, and we've seen a lot in 100 years, but we've never quite seen 4 years like this. There is no question that there is a relationship to people in positions of authority, elected officials at the highest level, demonizing their opponents, denigrating minority groups, and the explosion of hate that we've seen that's targeted Jewish people, the Latinx community, and as we've seen in a terrifying way in recent months, the AAPI community. All of this is lashed up. And what our report reveals is that white supremacist propaganda efforts, as you said, nearly doubled year over year. We had an average of 14 incidents a day in every state in America other than Hawaii. And this is terrifying because what we've seen these groups do is use the language that the president pioneered, like America First, or Reclaim America, or this false patriotism, to push prejudice, to denigrate immigrants, African Americans, Jews, and other minorities. And we need to recognize that that kind of language has a real cost. So when Senator Johnson makes the inexplicable comment, truly, that he was not concerned about what happened on January the 6th, Mika, those weren't protesters. They were militants. It wasn't a riot. It was an attack. And those individuals who didn't seek to talk about democracy with Senator Johnson, they sought to kidnap and kill our legislatures, to interrupt the process because they were fueled by the incitement that started literally at the top from the White House.
Okay, so I see what you see. Why is it so hard for everyone to see the same thing here?
It's rather staggering. There is no narrative, Mika, as he said. There are only facts. And here are the facts.
That's right.
Language can metastasize into harassment, vandalism, and violence. And there is a through line, if you will, from Charlottesville to Pittsburgh to El Paso to, again, the violence that we've seen against the Asian American community. And you can try to put a political sheen on this. And you could suggest that somehow, what if there were mobs of other people? But you see, there are no mobs of other people. There is no organized armed Antifa movement. There is only the reality that extremists over the last decade, right-wing extremists, have been responsible for 75+% of the hate-caused murders in this country. And the facts, they simply speak for themselves. We all do ourselves a disservice, Republicans or Democrat, conservative or liberal, when we deny the reality that white supremacy is a terror threat that actually threatens us all.
Sophia, we've talked a lot over the last several years about this issue, which is that these people that Jonathan is talking about right now, who were pushed to the shadows by a society who didn't want them out in public anymore, were given credence, were given legitimacy, not just by President Trump, but by other politicians who said, your views are valid, your complaints are real, you are effectively the victims in all of this and where our culture is headed right now. And we heard that dripping off the lips of Senator Johnson when he said, first of all, that these people respect law enforcement. Really, a cop was murdered. Many others were beaten with flags and others. And this idea that he was more afraid of the potential for black people coming into the building than he was for the people who actually perpetrated the crime, and then finished it off by calling himself the victim, writing a piece for the Wall Street Journal where he said he would not be silenced by the left. This is the cycle we've seen from prominent people over the last few years.
Yeah, I mean, Willie, first of all, we have two Americas, and I think that one of the tragic things is that when we have thoughtful discussions, whether it's on this network or others, where we have people like Mr. Greenblatt come on and talk about the facts, the FBI director, the Republican FBI director, Christopher Wray, was sounding the alarm for years during the Trump administration that we had a serious problem with the rise of white domestic terrorism. He did not cite Black Lives Matter. He did not cite other groups. He specifically said we have a concern with white domestic terrorism that really uncovered itself in Charlottesville. And so when Senator Johnson talks the way he does, understand that he's speaking to that other America. There are two of us. There is one America where I think the majority of us live, I hope, where we actually do deal in facts and reality. We acknowledge that we've made progress, but that racism is still a serious problem. In the faux news other reality, they believe in something else, that white people are the victims. White people are being canceled. White people are under attack in this country. White culture, white history. And until we can get to a place where we can understand that we are e pluribus unum, out of many one, and that we are one America, not two separate Americas, not one white, not one black or brown, we're going to continue to see senators, United States senators talk like this, governors talk like this, because we're very polarized, and they've made a decision, and it's tragic, that they're going to feed that beast and keep feeding it, which is what ended us up on January the 6th. And for Johnson to say that somehow these were peaceful people and he wasn't afraid of them when they had nooses hanging for the vice president, when they wanted to kill black and white legislators, when they wanted to kill Republican and Democrat legislators, it tells you a lot about where we are. And that's the problem.
Sam Stein, jump in.
Well, yeah, I mean, first off, it's not the most important point, but when Ron Johnson says that he thought you can't first of all say might get me in trouble, and then later on say I thought what I said was totally benign. Those two things don't jive. And it goes to show you that he knew what he was saying was not just provocative, but politically problematic and culturally and socially problematic too. But my question is for Jonathan, and it's not backwards looking, it's forwards looking, which is, look, we're here now. Everyone recognizes we have a problem that is growing, metastasizing. It's obviously political, but it's also, an element of our news ecosystem, of our society. How do you solve that? How do you put the genie back in the bottle? Or are we at a place where there are no short-term solutions, but you have to hope and pray that, over time, some of this may, diffuse itself?
Well, look, I appreciate the question, Sam. It's the right question. I think we need to acknowledge, first and foremost, there is no silver bullet. I mean, hate has been a persistent problem that preceded Donald Trump and will continue to the future. That being said, there certainly are steps we can take. So first and foremost, I think we do need people in positions of authority, whether you're the president of the United States or you're the president of the local PTA, to speak out clearly and consistently against hate, particularly when it affects other communities other than your own. Like, as a Jewish man, I am deeply concerned about the AAPI hate, and I'm concerned about anti-black racism, et cetera. We all need to recognize that we're in this together. That's number one. Number two, I would suggest that we can recondition, if you will, this environment with things like anti-bias education and commemorations of other sort of marginalized communities and lift them up. Thirdly, I think something that's critical here is we need to end the complicity of the social media companies. Our own analysis at ADL suggests disinformation dropped dramatically when President Trump was booted off of Twitter and YouTube and Facebook for violating their terms of service. Those companies have been those services a breeding ground for bigotry. And if they can clamp down on disinformation and hate on their platforms, they'll make all of us, they'll make our entire environment much cleaner, healthier, and more decent and more humane.
I could not agree with you more. CEO and National Director of the ADL, Jonathan Greenblatt, thank you very, very much.